in the heart of an old money estate nestled against rolling hills where ivy clung to stone walls like forgotten secrets. The Sterling mansion stood as a monument to wealth that had long since soured. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto floors polished so brightly they reflected the arrogance of everyone who walked across them. But on that warm summer evening, the air inside felt colder than winter. Eleanor Brooks moved through the grand hallway with the quiet grace of someone who had spent decades in these very rooms. Her uniform was simple: a gray dress, white apron, hair pulled back neatly. At 62, her hands showed the years of work, but her eyes held something deeper, something the family never bothered to notice. She carried a silver tray with steady hands, refilling glasses at the lavish dinner party the Sterlings were hosting for their elite circle. Richard Sterling, the self-proclaimed patriarch, lounged at the head of the table like a king. His tailored suit strained slightly against his growing belly, a testament to too many rich meals and even richer deals. Beside him sat his wife, Victoria, her diamond necklace catching the light with every dismissive gesture. Their daughter Sophia, 24, and entitled beyond measure, scrolled through her phone while giggling with her friends. "Maid," Richard called out sharply, not even using her name. "This wine is warm." "Again. Are you trying to embarrass us in front of our guests?" Eleanor lowered her gaze respectfully. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling. I'll bring a fresh bottle right away." But that wasn't enough. Victoria let out a theatrical sigh. "Honestly, Richard, we should have hired someone younger. Look at her. She's moving like she's about to fall apart. And that uniform, did you pull it from the rag bin?" The table erupted in laughter. Sophia leaned forward, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Maybe she thinks if she looks pathetic enough, we'll feel sorry for her. Hey Brooks, why don't you get on your knees and clean up that spill over there? Like the good little servant you are." A glass of red wine had accidentally tipped over near Sophia's chair. The liquid spread across the marble like blood. Eleanor knelt without a word, cloth in hand, as phones came out to record her humiliation. The guests whispered and chuckled. One young man even said loudly, "This is better than reality TV." As Eleanor wiped the floor, her knees aching against the hard surface, Richard stood up and towered over her. "You know, we've been too generous keeping you on after Mother passed. Most families would have replaced old staff immediately. But here you are, still shuffling around like you belong. Newsflash, you don't. You're replaceable. Now hurry up before you ruin the entire evening." Eleanor's hands paused for just a moment. A single drop of wine stained her apron. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She simply finished cleaning, stood up slowly, and carried the tray back toward the kitchen. But inside, something ancient and patient stirred, the kind of resolve that comes from years of watching, waiting, and remembering. What the Sterlings didn't know was that this wasn't just another night of casual cruelty. It was the night everything would unravel. To understand how we got here, we have to go back. Margaret Sterling, Richard's mother, had been the true soul of this mansion for over 50 years. A widow who built her late husband's shipping empire into something legendary, she lived in these halls with quiet dignity. While her son chased status and her daughter-in-law chased attention, Margaret had formed a different kind of bond with the woman who served her faithfully for 32 years. Eleanor Brooks. Eleanor had arrived as a young widow herself, fleeing a difficult past, looking for honest work. Margaret saw something in her that others missed: intelligence, strength, and an unwavering loyalty that wasn't born from fear, but from genuine respect. Over the decades, their relationship deepened beyond employer and employee. They shared late-night conversations in the library. Eleanor became Margaret's confidant, her nurse during illness, and eventually her most trusted friend. The family never noticed. To them, Eleanor was just background furniture. When Margaret's health began to fail 2 years ago, she made arrangements in secret. She updated her will with her longtime lawyer, Mr. Whitaker, a man of iron principles who had served the family for decades. The document was clear, ironclad, and devastating in its simplicity. On the morning of the humiliation, none of the Sterlings suspected that everything around them, the mansion, The cars in the garage, the art on the walls, the bank accounts, worth hundreds of millions, was no longer theirs. Eleanor returned to the kitchen after the spill, her hands trembling slightly not from fear, but from the weight of what she carried. She had planned this moment carefully. For months after Margaret's passing, she had continued her role, watching how the family behaved when they thought no one of importance was looking. She had seen Richard's shady business dealings, Victoria's extravagant spending that was driving them toward financial ruin, and Sophia's cruel streak that reminded her too much of her father. But tonight, after the public degradation, Eleanor decided it was enough. She stepped into the hallway just as the party was winding down. The guests had moved to the drawing room for cigars and gossip. Richard was pouring himself another drink when he spotted her. "Still here? I thought I told you to stay out of sight." Eleanor stood straight, no longer hunched in subservience. "Mr. Sterling, there's something you need to see." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Whatever it is, handle it tomorrow. We're entertaining." But Eleanor didn't move. Instead, she pulled out her phone and made a single call. "Mr. Whitaker? Yes, it's time. They're all here." 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Mr. Whitaker entered, carrying a leather briefcase and accompanied by two notaries. The older lawyer's face was stern, professional, and carried the gravity of someone who had seen many fortunes rise and fall. Richard frowned. "Whitaker, what are you doing here at this hour?" The lawyer didn't waste time on pleasantries. He opened his briefcase and laid documents on the antique table. "I've come to execute the final wishes of Margaret Sterling." As you know, her will was read shortly after her passing. However, certain provisions were withheld until tonight at Mrs. Brooks' request. Sophia laughed nervously. "Mrs. Brooks? You mean the maid?" Mr. Whitaker's gaze was ice cold. "Eleanor Brooks is not, nor has she been for some time, merely the maid. According to the legally binding last will and testament of Margaret Sterling, the entirety of the estate, including this mansion, all properties, investments, and liquid assets, has been bequeathed to Eleanor Brooks." The room went deathly silent. Richard's face turned purple. "This is a joke. A sick joke. Mother would never." "Here are the documents," Whitaker continued, unflinching. "Signed, witnessed, and notarized 2 months before her death. Mrs. Brooks was given the option to claim her inheritance immediately, but she chose to observe how the family would conduct themselves in what they believed was their home. She wanted to give you a chance." Victoria's hands shook as she grabbed the papers. "This can't be real. We're family. Blood." "Blood," Eleanor said quietly, speaking for the first time with her full voice clear, educated, and commanding respect, "does not entitle anyone to cruelty. I served your mother with love for over 3 decades. She saw me as the daughter she never had. While you visited only when you needed money, I was here. Every night. Every crisis." Sophia's phone slipped from her fingers. You let us treat you like dirt," Eleanor finished. "Yes, and I documented every instance, the verbal abuse, the financial mismanagement, the way you've disrespected everything Margaret built." Richard stepped forward, trying to intimidate. "We'll fight this." "No judge will." "You'll lose," Whitaker interjected. "The will is unbreakable. Furthermore, Mrs. Brooks has been the legal owner for 14 months. You've been living in her house, eating her food, using her resources." The truth settled over the family like a heavy curtain falling. Eleanor walked slowly through the room she now openly owned, touching the back of a chair. "I didn't want it to come to this. I hoped you would show kindness, decency. But every day you chose humiliation. You chose to break someone you thought was beneath you. Tonight, I simply stopped pretending." Victoria began to cry real tears this time, not the performative kind. "Please, Eleanor, we've nowhere to go. Our accounts. Richard's business. That's not my concern anymore," Eleanor replied softly, though her voice carried no pleasure in their pain. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises. The cars you drove, the clothes you wore, they were never yours. I'll allow you to keep your personal belongings, but the rest stays." Sophia collapsed into a chair. her perfect world shattering. The same friends who had filmed Eleanor's humiliation now stared in awkward silence, already backing away from the family. As the Sterlings stood there, broken and exposed, Eleanor looked at them not with triumph, but with a deep, weary sadness. Your mother loved you. Despite everything, she hoped her decision would teach you something. Wealth means nothing if it turns your heart rotten. I learned that from her. I hope someday you learn it too. She turned and walked up the grand staircase, the same one she had cleaned countless times, toward the master bedroom that had always been hers by right. The chandeliers seemed to shine a little brighter now, as if the house itself had been waiting for its true owner to finally step forward. The Sterlings were left standing in the ruins of their illusion. Richard's empire of arrogance had crumbled in a single evening. Victoria's social status evaporated. Sophia's future of privilege disappeared. And Eleanor Brooks, the woman they had humiliated on their knees, finally reclaimed the home that had always been hers. Some stories end with revenge. This one ended with something quieter, more powerful: justice, wrapped in the dignity of a woman who never lost her grace, even when the world tried to strip it away. The mansion stood silent that night, its walls holding decades of secrets. But now, a new chapter had begun. One where the quiet ones, the overlooked ones, sometimes turn out to be the true masters of their own destiny. And in the end, that's the part no one ever sees coming.